This video is from my series that walks you through how to build a career in film and television production.
So connecting the dots. Let's first listen to a conversation I had with a client, and then I'll come back at the end and sum it all up.
And then we want to know who the buyers are in your vertical, right? We talked about, what companies are relevant for what you're doing. And you're going to start to see a pattern with the kind of work you're interested in working on, your 10 to 20 list of shows. You're going to connect those dots. You're going to start to see a pattern of what you like and who's worked on what. So the production companies will repeat themselves. The individuals who run those companies or the principals at those companies will start to repeat themselves. So you're looking for what production companies made the shows and who worked on those projects. Because as I pointed out before, you saw Sean Levy is a big name in Hollywood and has been for a long time, but he works with the same people over and over, or has a tendency to work with the same people over and over. So you want to start to connect those dots to see who those parties are, who those people are, so you can work your way down the food chain to actually be able to get to someone that's not Sean Levy, but is connected to Sean Levy. You're looking for the common names. I use casting director as an example, but as a casting director or as an actor, if you see the same casting director on shows that show up over and over on your list of 20 admired projects, you're going to want to know who that casting director is. And you're going to want to learn who the associate that works for that casting director is. And possibly if there's an assistant, who's the assistant who's answering the phone. So it's the same kind of math for you. And how many degrees of separation is that person from the ultimate target that you're trying to get to? And the way you become a name for that sponsor is by working with them and them knowing about you and hearing your name from people below them. And then are there individuals who are making projects from your list that you admire? We talked about that a little bit earlier as well. Like, who are they? Who are the people who are making the shows? And you figure that out. Like the producer, the post supervisor who has a producer credit, that's not someone you're ever going to waste your time with. That guy's going to be sitting in a dark room, working with editorial and finishing movies and up to his eyeball. And well, it used to be tapes, but now it's data, right? So exercises. So the point of this section, the point of connecting the dots, is so that you'll start to recognize that the same people work together over and over and over. This is a business of referrals. You get a job because you've worked with someone. The only way you're going to get those jobs is if you have already worked with someone. That's the catch-22 we find ourselves in when we come to this business without a connection, without somebody who already works in the business. So the way we overcome that is by doing informational interviews so that we can connect with people to start our career or to level up in our career. We first do that by building a list of your favorite and admired shows for the past 3 to 5 years. You pick 20 of them. And then we research all the executives, the writers, directors, department heads, whatever you're looking for. We research who those people are, what production companies they came from, and then we're going to start to target those people at some point and or those companies in the next couple weeks. So using your admired list and the senior job titles that you ID'd on your dream job, we're going to start to see a pattern. And the question we want to answer is, who do those executives work with over and over? Who have they worked with in the past? Who have they worked with consistently? Those kinds of questions. And the reason we're doing that is because we're likely not going to get to the top level job. That's a big ask. And I don't know that you want to ask that on your entry level coming into the industry. You might not want to ask to sit in front of that individual. So what do? We work lower down the food chain so we can gain access to people who can make recommendations and can be our sponsor in the room when someone says, hey, there's a writer assistant job, or hey, there's an open director's job. When someone sits in the room and says, who do we need to fill that? Your sponsor can raise their hand and say, I know, I want to put you, insert your name in this conversation into this job. That's the point. Now, the sponsor who you might make a connection with might say to the room, look, I've never worked with this person, but I had an interview with them
and they were really smart. They were relevant. They knew our vertical. They knew our industry, and they were researched and understood a lot about what we're doing, a lot about what we do. And that's where it begins. It begins with you being relevant, you being researched, you understanding the vertical, understanding the people in it, who they work with. And you learn that by researching the shows you like, the people that work on them, and then connecting the dots of who those people are. You're looking for the production company that made the show. You're looking for who worked on those projects. You're looking at the person who's in your dream job in your vertical. You're looking at the shows in a particular vertical. You're seeing what's competitive and what's relevant. And you're doing that from a list of shows that you admire. Something that you can talk relevantly about that you've watched in the past. You want to work in fantasy? Great. You want to work in dramatic 1-hour television? Great. You want to work in half-hour sitcoms? Great. The reason I chose the admired list is so that you have something of a reference point to pull from. You're just not randomly researching shows that you think you might be good at. You're doing something that you like. You're learning about something you're interested in. That's why the admired list. Then we start to put in the names of the people who made those projects happen, the ones who worked on them. And then we start to look for common names. In the example we gave you in casting director, if you see the casting director name, the same name shows up 3 times on your top 20 admired projects list, and you're an actor, you're going to want to know who that person is. You're going to want to get to know them. You're going to want to understand their organization, how they're structured. Not every company, but a lot of companies are structured differently. And you're going to have to understand how those companies are structured and learn how they're structured so that you can demonstrate that you're relevant and that you're connected and that you understand the industry. Those are the 3 important points you need to start with. You do that by looking at your list, your admired list. You pull the common names, people worked on it, you start to connect the dots, and you start to see how many degrees of separation are there between one individual and the next. A junior writer's assistant to the staff writer, to the showrunner, to the big name that runs the company that sold the show to a particular outlet, whether it's a distributor, it's a producer, or it's an OTT, or whatever. You understand how that cycle works and how the business runs and the people who are in it. And in doing this research, you start to understand how producers structure their organizations, how many people they typically will have on a project. Is it a big staff? Is it a small staff? Are they working on big $200 million movies? Are they working on $5 million an episode shows? Are they working on $2 million episodes a show? That tells you how a company is staffed and how big it is and how many writers, directors, actors, whatever needs to show up on this particular project. Your task in this exercise, as you're doing the research, your task is to memorize this data, the shows, the companies, the staffers, the distributor, the exhibitors. How did it get out? How did they monetize it? Was it theatrical? Was it domestic theatrical, foreign theatrical? Was it television? Was it broadcast television? Was it streaming television? Did it start in theatrical and wind up in broadcast? Or did it start in broadcast and wind up on a streamer? Those are the questions you have to ask and you have to understand. When I say memorize the detail, just doing this research will get you familiar with the names, the companies, the players in your vertical and who are part of who have either been in your path or have executed the path you're currently interested in pursuing. You're going to see it over and over again, and it's going to get in your head. You know, whatever you don't get in your head, then you just sit down, you learn it, and you study it. Go watch the shows again if you need to. Sometimes that helps. Seeing the credits sometimes helps. Just by rote memorization sometimes helps. You write it down. Sometimes just writing it down and putting it pen to paper, seeing it, hearing it, and then the physicality of writing it. Those 3 things often will help you memorize who these people are. And it will ultimately help you in your conversation and in your interview with the executives we're trying to reach, whether they're mid-level, high-level, or low-level people who are working in the vertical and or on the path that you currently want to set as your career. Remember, you're going to ask your target interview to tell you their story, and ultimately, you need to be able to come across as connected, relevant, and demonstrate that you understand the industry. And when I say connected, I mean connected to the people who are in the vertical and the path you want to pursue. That doesn't mean you know all these people, doesn't mean you have a connection to all of them. It just means that you're relevant and that you're connected to the information. And that will demonstrate to the people you're talking to, that you're going to interview, that you understand the industry, that you have an understanding of it. That in itself will put you ahead of most of the people who come into this industry. The vast majority of entry-level people who come here don't understand the industry. They don't understand the structure. They don't know that they need to pursue producers necessarily. And if so, what kind of producers? They can't weed out the bullshit from the real. They don't know what money means, what real money is it connected to, whether, and when I say money, I'm talking about production money, not just a guy with, or a girl with expensive clothes, an expensive car, a big watch, all of that shit that people do and use to demonstrate that they have wealth. That's great. But what we really care about is there money to produce the show, pay the people so that you're making professional content and being paid a salary that's commensurate with that kind of work. So at the end of the day, connecting dots helps you memorize who the players are, who the people are, who are making the shows that you admire and the shows you want to get on. That's ultimately your end task. Understanding who the players are so that you can get a job in that particular vertical.